Hi there, my name's Kirsty. I'm a biomechanics grad student. I've just started using Nexus 2 and its Matlab interaction capabilities. So I thought I'd make a few short videos just as a basic introduction to how it works and some useful things that you can do in it. So this video here is just going to be like a real basic introduction. I'm going to give you 3 key commands that basically will set you up and you can do almost everything with. And then I'm going to go into a little bit more depth and just explain a couple of the functions that I find really useful. For example, like taking out your model data from Nexus and putting it into Matlab, taking out your analog data, creating a marker in the 3D space, and I'm also going to go through the Matlab tab in Nexus, which you may have noticed is down here. So I'll talk about how to run your scripts through Nexus and also how to put them into pipelines and that kind of thing. So today's video is a really basic introduction, like I said. I have 3 key statements for you today, and I will go through them in a second. The first thing I want to do is, if you haven't used Nexus and Matlab together before, you're going to need to set your Matlab path. Now the way that you do that is, it's a desktop app, so you can search for it, set Matlab path, and you'll see it come up here. All you need to do is click on that, and that is your first established link between Matlab and Nexus. Done it the first time, you don't need to do it again, it's just a once off. And so now we can get started. So as you can see in Nexus, I have an open running trial. I'm just going to play that through a little bit. And so it's someone running on a split belt instrumented treadmill with some trunk and lower limb markers, as you can see. So let's go into Matlab now. And what we're going to do is start with statement number 1. So our first statement is Vicon equals ViconNexus. So if I type that exactly as it is here and press enter, this is what's going to establish a link within Matlab to the Nexus software. So you can see some text come up here because I didn't suppress the output with a semicolon, and if I go into my workspace as well, I can see that something has been created, Vicon, in there. Okay, so this will only not work, the connection will not work, and further processing will not work unless you have an internet connection. So it seems to depend on an internet connection for these 2 packages to link up. And secondly, it might not be working if you have not typed in the first statement exactly as you see it. So those might be 2 reasons why you're having problems, but for the most part this should work quite smoothly if you're connected to the internet. Alright, so the next thing, that was statement number 1, so now we've established this link. The next thing that we're going to do is look at the list of commands that we have available to use. So how we do that is we go Vicon, all lowercase as we've written it up here, .DisplayCommandList, and just press enter then. And what you'll see is this list that has been populated in your command window. You can see all the commands that are available to you to use in Matlab to call on Nexus, so things that you can do. And a lot of these are very intuitively named, like get events here. So for example, you can imagine that will take out your events. So you can import events from Nexus. You can get your model outputs, you can get your joint names, marker names. So have a look at this list in your own time. But for now, what I'm going to do is actually look at the 3rd key command that we're going to use, which is vicon.DisplayCommandHelp. Now, obviously you've got this big list of commands, but you want to know how to use them. So the next thing you're going to do is grab one of these commands. So for now, let's say, how about get subject names? Seems a nice basic one. So if I chuck that there exactly as it appears on the list, and I've got apostrophes around it and also an open close bracket, I press enter, and here we go, we get a statement that tells us what this function does, the input parameters that are required and the output parameters that are required. So as you would probably expect, this command is going to retrieve the names of the subjects currently loaded into the Nexus workspace. We don't require any input parameters, and the output parameter will be obviously the subject name of the loaded trial that we have up here. So if I go subject name, so this is going to be my variable, I'm calling it subject name, equals vicon dot, and then our command, which was get subject names. And of course, if I had input parameters, I'd open my brackets, I'd make my list of inputs there, but I don't need any input parameters. So I'm fine to use it as is, and I press enter, and it gives me my subject name. So just to double check, if I go into my open trial in Nexus, I go to resources tab, I can see here that my subject is called John Smith. So the subject name has been correctly imported into Matlab. So back into Nexus now, this gives you an idea of how this works. So let's try another one. How about we go get marker names. So we have this command up here, get marker names. Now before I use it, I'm going to check what's required, input and output parameters. So again, I'm going to use my vicon.DisplayCommandHelp. And then I'm going to put in the get marker name command, and it's going to tell me that this will retrieve the names of the markers for the specified subject. And obviously our input parameters here are subject name, so the name of the subject, which we've just taken out here. So this is a nice extra step of automation. If we were using this across lots of subjects, we could actually do the first step one is to get the subject name, and then we use that to get the marker names, instead of manually going and fetching the subject name every time and rewriting our function here. We can just use a variable subject name. And then next we've got our output parameters, which is the list of marker names. So I'm going to type marker names equals vicon dot, and then get marker name was our command, get marker names, so it has to be written exactly, open bracket, and then our input parameters. Now John Smith will need to be its subject name where it's stored, and of course I just have one subject name, so I'm going to put curly brackets to extract the subject name there around subject name 1. And if I press enter, I get a list of marker names. So I go into my workspace, and because we've brought them into here, we now have marker names as a new variable. We've got subject names as the subject name that we brought in earlier, that we stored in there, and we also have Vicon still active. So if I open that up now, we've stored all these marker names in a variable as well. So we'll just do one more quick one today. If you look at my Nexus trial, you can see that the trial is a crop trial. So there's some grey region here. The trial has been cropped. So what I want to do is actually establish the trial region of interest. So where does the trial start and end, the cropped trial? And the way that we're going to do that is vicon.DisplayCommandHelp for get trial region of interest. And I'm just going to press enter now, and I get that this will retrieve the start and end frames of the region of interest for the currently loaded trial. So there needs to be an open trial for this command to work. We've got no input parameters, but we've got 2 output parameters. So essentially we need to leave space for 2 outputs in the order that they appear here. Which means that my first output will be S frame, I'm going to call that, and my second will be E frame equals. So now I've left space for the first and the second output parameter, and then vicon.getTrial region of interest. And if I press enter on that, I get start frame would be 26 and end frame 1332. Coming into Nexus, just to double check that, so if I come back to the start here, we've got 26, take it to the end, 1332. So today has just been a really basic introduction using the vicon equals ViconNexus start command to link the two, following that up with vicon.DisplayCommandList to know exactly what you have available to you. And I just want to mention now that maybe with further releases of Nexus 2, so as versions increase, you might actually see a change in that command list, so it's worth checking if you've just updated to a new Nexus. Maybe they'll have added some new functionality. So that's worth noting. And then thirdly, obviously vicon.DisplayCommandHelp, and chuck in any of those commands that you saw on the list, and you'll find out what input and output parameters are required. So I'll put those three lines into the text box below the video, so you can copy and paste them and start playing around with them.